DogWorks Radio is sponsored by Alaska Dog Works. Check out their website at alaskadogworks.com.
Start your day tomorrow with The Daily Dog with Michele Forto, the morning podcast on DogWorks Radio. Apple Podcast reviewer Patty Christensen calls it funny, smart, and filled with all the info I want to know about dogs. I love this show. Wake up with The Daily Dog. Available on DogWorks Radio on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your shows.
You are listening to The Daily Dog with your host, Michele Forto. The Daily Dog offers training advice, tips and tricks, and maybe even a book or movie review, too.
Hello and welcome, everybody. It's Michele Forto with The Daily Dog. We will be continuing our segment on the principles of learning and behavior, but before we get started on our show today, we'll be discussing operant conditioning. It would be a good idea if you go back and listen to the episode before where I discuss classical conditioning. Here we go. Operant conditioning is based on instrumental behavior. Instrumental behavior is motivated by the desire to control and achieve desirable outcomes while avoiding undesirable outcomes. The influence of behavior based on experience is known as the law of effect, first expressed by Edward Thorndike. According to this law, stimulus-response connections instrumental for producing desirable outcomes are stamped in or rewarded, whereas stimulus-response connections failing to produce desirable consequences are stamped out or punished. In the more modern version of the law of effect, there is heavy emphasis on the principles of reinforcement and punishment. Simply put, if a behavior is reinforced, it is more likely to reoccur in the future. In contrast, if the behavior is punished or it is less likely to reoccur in the future. Following the 4 ways in which instrumental behavior is either strengthened or weakened. Reward training, positive reinforcement. Outcomes that the dog desires to produce, prolong, or intensify tend to strengthen the behavior that they follow. Positive reinforcement occurs when the dog successfully controls rewarding outcomes. Omission training, negative punishment. The withdrawal, postponement, or decrease of rewarding outcomes tends to weaken behavior previously strengthened by those rewards. Negative punishment occurs when the dog fails to control the occurrence of rewarding outcomes. Escape avoidance training, negative reinforcement. A response that removes, delays, decreases, or prevents an aversive, pain, or fear-eliciting stimulus is strengthened. Negative reinforcement occurs when the dog successfully controls aversive outcomes. Punishment training, positive punishment. A response that produces, intensifies, or prolongs an aversive event tends to be weakened or suppressed as a result. Positive punishment occurs when the dog fails to control aversive outcomes. When a behavior is strengthened by its consequences, reinforcement has taken place. For it to be effective, reinforcement must occur at the moment the canine engages in the behavior. Reinforcement can be the result of an intentional, planned activity, or it can be an accidental reinforcement. When shaping behaviors, the trainer's timing must be precise when offering reinforcement. Otherwise, some behavior other than the target response may be reinforced. Reinforcement is referred to as either positive or negative and can be either primary or secondary, conditioned. When discussing reinforcement, it is often helpful to think of the principle in mathematical terms. Positive and negative do not refer to either good or bad, but to adding and removing stimuli with the sole purpose of making a behavior more likely to reoccur in the future. The realization that each day is made up of a series of behaviors that are either reinforced or not reinforced is the key to understanding how canine learning takes place. Reinforcers are categorized as primary and secondary. Secondary may also be referred to as being conditioned. Primary reinforcers are related to biology. Food, water, pleasurable contact, the avoidance to pain, and sexual contact are all examples of primary reinforcers. For some breeds, moving objects are also powerful primary reinforcers. In contrast, secondary or conditioned reinforcers are learned reinforcers. These types of reinforcers are usually related to social conditions. Many canines respond very well to smiles, praise, and attention. Conditioned reinforcers become reinforcing by being paired with primary reinforcers. The most commonly used conditioned reinforcer is praise. Good boy. However, good boy means little or nothing to a puppy at first. When good boy is paired with a treat and or a gentle pat, the good boy has become a conditioned reinforcer. In essence, the conditioned reinforcer announces that a primary reinforcer is forthcoming. Other conditioned reinforcers can be whistles, clickers, applause, the word no, or at, and even the zipper sound that announces the correction of a training collar. Negative reinforcement is often confused with punishment, though these operant principles are very different. In layman's terms, negative reinforcement is used to get the dog to do something more often, whereas punishment is used to get the dog to stop doing something. Punishment-like reinforcement can be positive or negative. Arguably, the most common example of negative reinforcement would be the use of a training collar. After the pressure of the chain has been exerted against the dog's neck, positive punishment, the dog will work very hard to avoid that pressure. At this point, negative reinforcement has occurred. Negative reinforcers are also conditioned reinforcers. In the case of a training collar, the dog will have to have maybe had the pressure applied at least once in order to have learned to avoid it. Punishment is another important principle of operant conditioning. It involves the delivery of a punisher with the specific goal of making a behavior less likely to reoccur in the future. Many people associate the word punishment with retribution or physical abuse. Therefore, many trainers choose the word correction. Nevertheless, punishment is the correct term in an operant context. Punishment is delivered systematically without emotion in order to decrease a behavior. It does not involve retribution or anger. There is a wide range of punishment from withdrawal of attention to shock collars. The disparity between training methods is just as wide. On one end of the spectrum are the motivational trainers. They advocate a total hands-off approach, not even supporting the use of leashes, let alone something like a shock collar. At the opposite end of the spectrum are the trainers who rely primarily on negative reinforcement and punishment in order to train dogs. In the middle are the trainers who use motivational means to train dogs, as well as the use of mild aversive punishers to help speed up training. Just as with reinforcement, punishment can be conditioned or unconditioned and be positive or negative. Again, it is helpful to think in mathematical terms when sorting out positive and negative punishment. Positive punishment occurs when a behavior is followed by the presentation of an aversive stimulus. In contrast, negative punishment involves the withdrawal of a positive consequence. An example of negative punishment would be creating a disruptive dog, thereby removing your attention. Just as with primary reinforcers, unconditioned punishers are related to biology and do not need any experience to be perceived as aversive. Some examples would be extreme heat or cold, high levels of noise, or any painful stimuli such as a slap, shock, or pinch. On the other hand, conditioned punishers only serve as punishers after having been paired with either an unconditional punisher or another conditioned punisher. The most common conditioned punisher is the verbal reprimand, no. Others include facial expressions, domineering body posture, or in the case of some, shock collars, an audible warning tone. When training dogs, it is important to understand that a punisher has been delivered when the behavior decreases or stops. A simple no is just as much of a punisher as a shock if both have accomplished the same goal. Up next is our breed of the day. We hope you continue to listen to the Daily Dog. Today's breed of the day is the Neapolitan Mastiff. From the beginning of man's relationship with Canis familiaris, ancient cultures all over the world created giant dogs of heavy bone with a large head and short muzzle. While in times past they were used in battle, these breeds have evolved to protect and guard and today serve as family companions. The Neapolitan Mastiff, or Mastino, is one of these dogs, the giant guard dog of Italy. Like its cousin, the English Mastiff, the modern Neapolitan Mastiff is an estate guard dog. Instrumental in creating this breed was none other than Alexander the Great. In the 4th century BC, Alexander was known to have crossed the giant Macedonian and Epiroan war dogs with short-haired Indian dogs to create the Molossus. The Molossus was a notable creature characterized by a wide, short muzzle and a heavy dewlap. Alexander used it to fight tigers, lions, elephants, and men in battle. When the Romans set out to conquer the world, they adopted the Molossus and used them in battle, on the hunt, and in the arena. The Roman conquest of Britain in 54 BC gave them access to the even larger giant dogs there. The several different breeds descended from these dogs have many traits in common. They are large, powerful animals, are devoted to their masters, and are superior defenders of person and property. Over the centuries, the farmers of the Neapolitan area of southern Italy focused on breeding Mastini that retain the giant size, heavy, loose skin, and dewlap of their ancestors. They created an animal that was a stay-at-home type and was good with the family, although still adept in detecting unwanted intruders and deterring. Indeed, many say the Neapolitan Mastiff was developed purposefully as an alarming, ugly dog, whose looks alone were enough to repulse any intruder. After World War II, this breed was recognized as a national treasure, and several Italians began to organize the breed. 6 Neapolitan Mastiffs were presented at the first exhibition in Naples in 1946. Dr. Piero Scanzani codified the standard in 1948, and in the following year the breed was first officially recognized. By the early 1970s, the breed had representatives in most European countries and had acquired significant footholds in America, where a few fanciers became fascinated by the art of breeding this distinctive-looking and uniquely moving dog. The first and possibly most important feature of the Neapolitan Mastiff is that it must appear massive, so much so that even though physically smaller than the English Mastiff, it often appears more massive because of the heaviness of the bones, the width of the trunk, and the awe-inspiring head. The general appearance of the Neapolitan Mastiff, an ancient breed rediscovered in Italy in the 1940s, the Neapolitan Mastiff is a heavy-boned, massive, awe-inspiring dog bred for use as a guard and defender of owner and property. He is characterized by loose skin over his entire body, abundant hanging wrinkles and folds on the head, and a voluminous dewlap. The essence of the Neapolitan is his bestial appearance, astounding head, and imposing size and attitude. Due to his massive structure, his characteristic movement is rolling and lumbering, not elegant or showy. The temperament of the Neapolitan Mastiff is steady and loyal to his owners, not aggressive or apt to bite without reason. As a protector of his property and owners, he is always watchful and does not relish intrusion by strangers into his personal space. His attitude is calm yet wary. In the show ring, he is majestic and powerful, but not showy. Thanks for listening to The Daily Dog. We hope you tune in next time.
Did you know that Alaska Dog Works trains service dogs for those in need throughout North America? Each and every service dog that is trained through the Lead Dog Service Dog Program and Michele Forto and her team has an individual training plan. We train for autistic, mobility, psychiatric, and PTSD for our soldiers for service work. If you know of someone that may need a service dog, please take a moment and check out Alaska Dog Works on social media and at alaskadogworks.com.
If you like our podcast, there are a few things you can do. You can take a couple of minutes and go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also check out all of our DogWorks Radio sponsors and promotions in our show notes. Another thing you can do is go over to Facebook, like our Facebook page, and one last thing, please tell all of your friends by spreading the word about DogWorks Radio. Thank you so much for listening to us. We really appreciate you.
DogWorks Radio is produced by Robert Forto. Logo art by Angry Squirrel Studios. DogWorks Radio is produced in conjunction with KVRF 89.7 in Palmer, Alaska.
For dog training advice, you can contact Alaska Dog Works at 907-841-1686 or visit their website at alaskadogworks.com. If you have a show idea or would like to be a guest, please contact us by sending an email to live@dogworksradio.com.